Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Paul, the Canadian Snowman, back here with some more Alexander the Great, in particular, his tomb. Uh, this is part two of two. So this is the last one. It's only a two-part little series. But the first one was basically following his tomb from after Alexander died. And it was supposed to go, I think it was supposed to go back to Greece, and then got kind of hijacked and went to Europe, not Europe, went to Egypt, and yeah, and it was basically used to kind of make, was it Ptolemy? I kind of forget what his name. Uh, the the Egyptian king or wherever the leader of Egypt, to solidify himself in Egypt by kind of making himself where people thought he was related to him, like they were brothers and stuff like that. So it kind of solidified, him stronger as, the leader there. And it worked. So, that it was definitely successful. And then over time, of course, as Egypt, gained less and less power, or at least the king did, or whoever it was, the pharaoh. I'm not sure what the hell they refer to themselves, but and there was not much money being made, so they had his tomb. Had a gold casket or whatnot, and they took his body out, need the gold and put him in a glass one. So that's kind of where we're at now. I think the body got moved up to Alexandria. I'm not quite sure. I don't remember, but we're gonna find out. Where did his body end up? Like, because from like past videos I've watched, it says the body got lost, but then there was a video where I think someone said the body was in Iraq, but I don't know. We're gonna jump into it anyway. Please hit that like and subscribe button below, and we're gonna jump right into this, guys. Thank you for watching. This kind of stuff's really neat. 3, 2, 1, bam.
This video was sponsored by The Great Courses Plus. Go to thegreatcoursesplus.com today to start your free trial. In 30 BC, great change was coming to the city of Alexandria. The death of Cleopatra signaled the end of the Ptolemaic dynasty in Egypt, and the era of Roman Alexandria began. Just as it had first under Perdiccas and then under the Ptolemies, as Rome became the new owners of Alexander's body, the symbolic power of the conqueror's corpse changed once again. So how great was this transformation? And why did this body, one so central to Alexandrian life, later suddenly vanish without a trace? This is the story behind Alexander's body and his tomb.
Yeah, I'm really curious now, because if Rome has his body, and we just know how good Rome is at keeping records and just keeping order and everything, so it's gonna be kind of curious to see exactly what happens. I mean, maybe this happens a lot later on. We'll see.
Alexander had always fascinated the Romans. Questions of who would have emerged victorious if Alexander had faced them in battle had dominated much scholarly thinking for centuries. To some, he was a drunk and decadent megalomaniac. Yet to those Romans who desired power, he was an immortalized conqueror who epitomized world power, a man to admire and emulate.
Yes, it would. Don't you think it would have been really cool, because kind of Alexander is always kind of fun, where you wish you can kind of have them in the same time period. Like maybe if Alexander was in control of Macedonia, the series we just did, as Rome was trying to rise to power, how things could have been different, because then you could have had Hannibal, and then, the Roman Republic, and then Alexander of Macedonia. That would have been so awesome to kind of see how that would have turned out. Because I definitely think that Macedonia would have, I think they, with Alexander, I think they would have stood a chance. But well, you'll never know.
First Julius Caesar and then Augustus would visit Alexander's tomb to pay their respects.
Nice.
Augustus, according to one account, breaking off Alexander's nose by accident. Both neglected the nearby Ptolemaic tombs. In their eyes, only Alexander was worthy of admiration. When asked whether he would like to see the bodies of the Ptolemies, Augustus replied, "I came to see a king, not a bunch of corpses."
So do you think that they knew that the Ptolemies were just trying to, like, piggyback off of Alexander's body? Do you think they had those records from that kind of thing? That they're just there for Alexander? He broke his nose, man. You think that was an accident? I guess it could have been.
"I came to see a king, not a bunch of corpses." The Romans showed contempt for the Ptolemaic link with Alexander. Some suggest that they even had the Ptolemaic tombs removed, thus severing the connection between the Ptolemies and Alexander.
Okay.
Other Roman emperors also visited Soma, among them Caligula, Vespasian, Titus, and Hadrian. For them all, the body symbolized the zenith of power. Many would thus associate themselves with Alexander, some more obsessively than others. Caligula, for instance, looted Alexander's body of his breastplate. Yet no emperor was more fixated with Alexander than the crazed Caracalla, who believed he was Alexander reincarnated. So crazed was his belief that he called himself the Great Alexander and even equipped Macedonian levies as Alexander's infantrymen, arming them with deadly sarissæ and naming them Alexander's phalanx. It is not surprising that Caracalla was murdered soon after. As the crisis of the 3rd century raged, Alexandria would endure numerous riots, rebellions, and sackings from various monarchs, among them the famed Palmyrene Queen Zenobia, as well as the emperors Aurelian and Diocletian. Yet the tomb survived. Mention of Alexander's tomb is sparse in this period. However, in 390 AD, another reference to Alexander's tomb emerges, this time by the pagan writer Libanius, who mentions Alexander's body being on display in Alexandria. Little did he know that his would be the last known written account mentioning Alexander's body in Alexandria. Within 10 years, all knowledge of the whereabouts of Alexander had disappeared. Around 400 AD, the Christian priest John Chrysostom went so far as to taunt the disappearance of this pagan body. Where, tell me, is Alexander's tomb? Alexander's body had vanished without a trace. So what likely happened? The answer, most likely, lies in the religious context of the late 4th century Alexandria. At the start of the 4th century, a new powerful force came to the city, one
Interesting.
very different to those that had come before, the followers of Christ. Jews and Christians had long lived in Alexandria as minor sects of the mainly pagan population. Yet by 330 AD, following the split of the Roman Empire in two, the Christian sect began to grow. Christian zealots soon appeared throughout the Eastern Roman Empire, on many occasions violently tearing down pagan buildings. Alexandria would not be spared this fervent zeal. In 391, the Eastern Roman Emperor Theodosius officially banned paganism throughout the empire. All symbols of paganism had to be eradicated. The Christians in Alexandria happily obliged, quickly destroying the pagan places of worship, most notably the Serapeum, the temple to Serapis.
Wow.
Many believe Alexander's tomb suffered a similar fate. To the early Christians, Alexander's tomb was more than just a monument. The pagans worshipped Alexander as a god, and his tomb had been a place of pagan worship for centuries. If left untouched, it could easily become a focal point for pagan resistance. It is likely that Alexander's tomb suffered a similar fate to the Serapeum in 391. As for the body itself, It was likely either buried underneath or smuggled away before the destruction could take place. No evidence has yet been found. Yet there is another possibility. The Christians did not always tear down pagan sites. Sometimes they simply converted these places into Christian churches. One theory put forward by Andrew Chugg suggests Alexander's tomb may have been converted into the Church of St. Mark, the founder of Christianity in Alexandria. This church is first mentioned in the 390s, at the same time we last hear of Alexander's body, and was also located in the centre of Alexandria. In some accounts, St. Mark's body was also mummified. Yet, the story then gets even more interesting. In 828, Venetian traders smuggled a body, alleged to be Mark, out of the church. They then sailed back to Venice, whose patron saint was St. Mark. The body was placed in the Basilica of St. Mark, where it remains to this day. Could this be the final resting place of Alexander? Although this theory has flaws, it is fascinating to consider that Alexander's body may not be lost in Alexandria, but highly visible in the centre of Venice. Attempts to discover the whereabouts of Alexander's tomb have occurred since Muslim occupation of Alexandria from 640 onwards. To this day, sarcophagi are being uncovered, yet none so far have been proven to be that of Alexander. Despite this,
that's gotta stink because, people alluded to his golden casket, whatever, way earlier, and, the Christians that went there and probably like this, most likely burned it down. And he easily just could have been burned in the rubble, his bones just could be, underneath, underneath there for all we know. Yeah, anything that could probably has his marks or anything, people probably already stole off with because it's probably worth something. And so, yeah, wow, that's a disappointment. You never know. One day, people, dig all the time for, treasures and stuff like that. They might come across something, but oh, this is disappointing not knowing where.
None so far have been proven to be that of Alexander. Despite this, there have been some interesting finds, one of which stands out above the rest. In 1798, the French Emperor Napoleon arrived in Alexandria at the start of his Egyptian campaign, and his men made a startling discovery. In a mosque courtyard, they discovered an ornate Egyptian sarcophagus claimed to be the empty sarcophagus of Alexander the Great. This sarcophagus soon fell into the hands of the British following their victory at Alexandria in 1801. Equally convinced it was the sarcophagus of Alexander, they took it to London to be displayed at the British Museum. Yet disappointment soon followed, as hieroglyphs then revealed it belonged to Nectanebo II. This is not to say that the sarcophagus had never housed Alexander's body, however. As mentioned at the beginning of our first video, for a time it is likely Ptolemy I had placed Alexander's body in the empty sarcophagus of Nectanebo II, as it was in this act that fabulous Egyptian tales of Alexander being the son of Nectanebo likely took root. It was in this coffin, for instance, that Ptolemy likely transported Alexander's body to Alexandria from Memphis before it was later replaced. Could this tomb, now on display in the British Museum, have once housed the mummified body of Alexander? The story of Alexander's body is one that fascinates archaeologists and historians to this day, and the hunt continues for the eternal conqueror's remains. Recently, another sarcophagus dating to Ptolemaic times was discovered in Alexandria. Perhaps this tomb will be the one. Or perhaps Alexander's body is still out there, silently waiting to be discovered. When we create our videos, we often use the series of lectures called...
Thing I'm disappointed about, I did a geography now. I'm pretty sure it was Iraq. They said they had, the tomb of Alexander the Great. I'm pretty sure in that video, but there's no mention of that here. I thought maybe there'd be kind of like an honorable mention. But maybe there's just absolutely no proof, and it's just maybe them just, saying so. So, oh wow. So really, there was absolutely no way of telling unless they end up finding like a casket buried somewhere. It gets uncovered somewhere, and they eventually do find it. That'd be really cool, man. But like, you could find the body, but like, with it, there's no DNA that they'd be able to figure out if it was him or not. Unless there was some kind of scribbling on a cloth around him or something that had his name or something on it, or from his time period. But wow, that was definitely a lot more interesting than I expected it to be because they actually were able to kind of follow it a lot. I thought, I mean, I guess a lot of it was kind of speculation to a certain. Once it got to like basically 400, year 400, it was basically all speculation after that. So I mean, we don't know right now, but it's possible we'll find out eventually, like I said. But damn, cool stuff, guys. Awesome. Hope you guys liked this video. I thought it was pretty interesting. Definitely different than the war videos we usually do. And on to new stuff tomorrow, I guess. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Guys, have a great night. Please hit that like and subscribe if you haven't yet. And yeah, peace. No, this was fun. Fun stuff. Anyways, guys, have a good night. Peace. Love you guys. Take it easy. I'm out of here.